Most people think living near water means paying more. A coastal view, beach access, the sound of waves, these are supposed to be luxuries reserved for the wealthy or the retired. But some Canadian communities near beaches operate differently. They're not marketed as resort destinations. They're not packed with vacation homes driving up prices. They're just towns where people live, work, and happen to be minutes from shoreline. The contradiction is quiet. While urban waterfront properties climb into unaffordable territory, certain beach towns across Canada remain accessible, not because they're hidden gems waiting to be discovered, but because they exist outside the economic pressures that make coastal living expensive everywhere else. If you're tired of being told where you can't afford to live, subscribe. This channel explores places where fewer bills matter more than higher income. This might look like a video about beach towns, sand, water, summer weekends, the usual tourism angles, but what's actually happening is more practical. Canada's coastal and lakeside communities are experiencing different economic trajectories than urban centers. This isn't about finding a tropical paradise. It's about understanding why certain beach towns function as low-pressure environments where housing costs follow different rules. This video covers 10 beach communities across Canada, ocean, lake, and river, where proximity to water doesn't automatically mean luxury pricing. You'll see population trends, housing realities, work conditions, and what daily life actually looks like. No ranking, no best beach town theatrics, just patterns that repeat across different provinces, climates, and economies. Watch through to the end. Canada's housing market has diverged sharply over the past decade. Major cities absorbed most immigration, investment, and infrastructure spending, which drove costs upward. Meanwhile, smaller communities, especially those with seasonal economies or aging populations, didn't experience the same price acceleration. Beach towns face unique pressures. Many were built around tourism, fishing, or resource extraction. When those industries shrank, populations declined. At the same time, rising costs in Toronto, Vancouver, and other metros pushed people to reconsider where they actually need to be. Lifestyle structure, how much you spend to maintain your routines, became as important as salary. Shediac calls itself the lobster capital of the world, but what matters more is that it's a functional year-round town with beach access and lower-than-average housing costs for coastal Canada. Life here moves around fishing seasons, summer tourism, and quiet winters. The pace slows considerably after Labor Day. Locals know each other. The beach is part of the landscape, not a destination. You're not fighting for parking or dealing with resort pricing outside of July and August. Population sits around 7,500, stable, slightly aging. Housing includes single-family homes available under $250,000 with limited but existing rentals. Cost of living runs below the national average with reasonable utilities and groceries. Work reality centers on seasonal tourism, some remote work, and healthcare jobs in nearby Moncton. The proximity to Moncton, just 20 minutes away, provides services without city costs. Here's something unexpected. Parlee Beach is warm by Canadian standards, reaching 20 degrees C and higher in summer. You'll see the same trucks parked at the Tim Hortons every morning, and that's not a complaint. It's how small-town consistency works. The trade-off? Winters are long and quiet. If you need constant stimulation or big city amenities, you'll feel it by February. Picture walking to the beach on a Tuesday morning in June. No crowds, no parking fees, just sand, warm water, and the knowledge that your monthly housing cost is half what it would be in Halifax. Could you handle a place where the tourist season is busier than the rest of the year combined? Wasaga Beach has the longest freshwater beach in the world, and despite its proximity to Toronto just 90 minutes away, housing remains more accessible than GTA suburbs. This is a year-round town that swells in summer. Locals are used to the influx and know how to avoid the chaos. Off-season, it's calm, spread out, and functional. The beach culture exists, but so do schools, clinics, and grocery stores that operate 12 months a year. Population sits around 24,000 and growing slowly, attracting retirees and remote workers. Median housing prices land around $550,000 to $650,000 compared to over $1 million in nearby Barrie or Toronto. Cost of living runs mid-range with moderate property taxes. Work reality involves a mix of tourism, retail, and healthcare, with many commuting to Barrie or working remotely. Beach access without Toronto pricing is the main draw. There's also a strong cycling and hiking trail network beyond the main beach strip that most visitors never see. You can grab a coffee, walk the beach, and be back home in 20 minutes without paying downtown rent. Summer traffic is intense, though. Main Beach gets packed on weekends. If you live here, you learn to use the quieter stretches or avoid July entirely. Imagine living somewhere that feels like vacation for others, but for you, it's just home, where beach walks are routine, not special occasions. Would you trade summer crowds for year-round beach access at a fraction of urban housing costs? Qualicum Beach is a small Vancouver island town with ocean access, mild winters, and a pace that prioritizes quiet routines over growth. Life here is slow by design. The downtown is walkable. The beach is rocky but accessible. Retirees make up a significant portion of the population, which shapes services and priorities. There's little nightlife, limited dining variety, and that's the point. Population hovers around 9,000, aging but stable. Housing median runs about $700K to $850K, which is high for a small town but lower than Victoria or Nanaimo. Cost of living is moderate with BC pricing on goods, but lower housing than urban island areas. Work reality is limited for local jobs, with many residents either retired or working remotely. The incentive package includes ocean access, mild climate, and a walkable community. Proximity to Parksville and Nanaimo provides backup services without needing big city infrastructure. You'll see more dog walkers on the beach than surfers, and that tells you everything about the demographic. Job opportunities are scarce unless you're self-employed or remote. Young families are rare here. Picture a morning where you walk to the ocean, feel the Pacific breeze, and return home without encountering traffic, noise, or rush. The rhythm is deliberate, the pace is measured, and the community expects you to match it. Could you thrive in a place where the average age is 60 plus and the pace matches? Grand Bend sits on Lake Huron with a reputation as a summer party town, but year-round residents experience something entirely different. Off-season, Grand Bend is quiet, affordable, and functional. The beach is clean and wide. The summer chaos funds local businesses that sustain the town through winter. If you live here, you accept the duality: packed summers, empty winters. Population sits at about 2,500 permanent residents but triples in summer. Housing median runs $450K to $550K, with rentals tight in summer and easier in winter. Cost of living is lower than Toronto or London, with seasonal pricing on some services. Work reality is tourism heavy, with some remote work, and nearby London just 45 minutes away for jobs. Beach access, lower overhead, and proximity to a larger city provide the main draw. There's a strong local art scene and year-round farmers market that most tourists never discover. Locals can tell who's visiting and who's staying just by how they interact with the beach. Tourists rush, residents stroll. The summer tourist economy can feel overwhelming if you value consistent peace. That's the reality check. Imagine living somewhere that transforms twice a year, busy enough to fund the economy, quiet enough to reset your stress levels. You get beach access without the permanent resort town pricing, but you also get the disruption. Could you handle living in a place where your home feels like two different towns depending on the season? Cavendish is known for Anne of Green Gables tourism, but it's also a small community with red sand beaches and relatively low cost compared to mainland Atlantic Canada. Life is tied to tourism and agriculture. The island pace is slow. People know their neighbors. Winters are isolated. Ferries and bridges are your only connections to the mainland. The beach is part of the national park, so access is protected but regulated. Population sits around 300 permanent residents, but the seasonal population climbs much higher. Housing stock is limited, with homes under $400K possible, though there are more cottages than year-round housing options. Cost of living is lower overall, but groceries run slightly higher due to island logistics. Work reality includes tourism, agriculture, and some government jobs in Charlottetown, 40 minutes away. Beach access, low density, and strong community feel provide the incentive structure. PEI offers provincial incentives for young families relocating, which is worth noting. You'll spend more time noticing tides than checking your phone. The island pace forces you to adjust or leave. Island isolation is real. Winter storms can cut ferry service. You need self-sufficiency and the temperament to handle being cut off occasionally. Picture living where the beach is a 5-minute walk. The air smells like salt and farmland, and your cost of living drops by 30% compared to Halifax. The trade-off is isolation and a pace that doesn't suit everyone. Could you handle island isolation in exchange for coastal living at a fraction of urban costs? Wasaga Beach offers miles of sandy Lake Huron shoreline and remains one of Ontario's more affordable beach communities. The town is small, seasonal, and functional. Summers bring cottage crowds. Winters are sparse. The beach is the main attraction, but locals live here year-round, working remotely or commuting to Owen Sound. The vibe is unpretentious. Beach culture without resort pricing. Population sits at roughly 2,500 permanent residents, but the summer population jumps 10 times higher. Housing median runs around $400K to $500K with a mix of cottages and year-round homes. Cost of living falls below the provincial average, though services are limited but sufficient. Work reality includes tourism, trades, and remote work with Owen Sound 30 minutes away for jobs. Beach access, low overhead, and outdoor lifestyle form the core incentive. The town is known for stunning sunsets over the lake, free entertainment that never gets old. Locals measure seasons by when the beach bars open and close, not by the calendar. Limited healthcare and services mean you'll drive for specialist appointments or bigger purchases. That's the practical limitation. Imagine ending every day watching the sun set over Lake Huron from your backyard, paying a fraction of what Waterfront costs in Toronto. The simplicity is the point. The beach is accessible, the costs are manageable, and the lifestyle prioritizes outdoor time over consumption. Would you trade convenience for a beach town where your mortgage is under $2,000 a month? Tofino is Canada's surf town, which makes it more expensive than other entries here, but still cheaper than Vancouver or Victoria if you're strategic. Life revolves around the ocean. The culture is outdoorsy, rugged, and seasonal. Tourists flood in for storm watching and surfing. Locals endure the tourism because it funds the economy. Winters are wet, dark, and isolating. The trade-off is direct Pacific access and a community built around nature. Population hovers around 2,000 permanent residents but swells seasonally. Housing median hits $800K and above with rentals scarce and expensive. Cost of living is high for a small town due to remote location and tourism demand. Work reality centers on tourism, hospitality, and conservation with remote work growing. Surf culture, natural beauty, and outdoor lifestyle provide the main draw. The remote location, 3.5 hours from Victoria, keeps some costs lower than urban island areas despite the tourism pressure. You'll know the surf report before you check the weather because here they're the same thing. Housing is tight, expensive, and competitive. The remoteness means everything costs more and takes longer to access. That's the barrier to entry. Picture waking up to Pacific waves, suiting up for a morning surf, and living in one of the most dramatic coastal landscapes in Canada, if you can afford the entry cost. The culture is worth it for the right person, but it's not accessible to everyone. Could you handle higher costs in exchange for surf culture and raw Pacific beauty? Pointe du Chien is a small francophone beach community near Shediac with warm water and even lower costs. This is a quieter, less touristy version of Shediac. The beach is local-focused. The community is tight-knit. French is the primary language. Life is slow, seasonal, and built around family and fishing traditions. Population sits around 1,000. Housing falls under $200K for many properties, making it extremely affordable. Cost of living runs well below the national average. Work reality includes fishing, seasonal tourism, and some commuting to Moncton. Warm water, low costs, and authentic Acadian culture form the incentive package. Acadian cultural festivals and food traditions still thrive here, which adds richness most tourists miss. You'll eat better seafood here than in most Canadian cities. Caught locally, sold directly, cooked traditionally. French fluency helps. The community is small and insular. Winters are quiet and long. That's the reality. Imagine living where your housing cost is under $1,000 a month. The beach is a short walk, and the water is warm enough to swim without a wetsuit. The cultural immersion is part of the package. The language requirement filters people out, which keeps the community stable and affordable. Would you learn French to access one of Canada's most affordable beach communities? You're halfway through. These aren't random vacation spots. They're communities where proximity to water doesn't automatically trigger luxury pricing. The pattern is consistent across provinces, climates, and economies. If this resonates, subscribe. This channel maps the systems that make certain places more livable than others. Number 9. Osoyoos, British Columbia. Osoyoos sits on a lake in Canada's only desert, offering warm water beach living and a surprisingly affordable cost structure for BC. This is a desert lake town with hot summers, mild winters, and a culture built around vineyards, fruit orchards, and outdoor recreation. The beach is freshwater, warm, and swimmable. The population skews older, but young families are moving in for affordability. Population sits around 5,000. Housing median runs $500K to $650K, which is lower than Kelowna or Vancouver. Cost of living is moderate, lower than coastal BC, higher than the prairies. Work reality includes agriculture, hospitality, remote work, and some commuting to Penticton. Warmest water in Canada, desert climate, and wine country provide the main incentives. Osoyoos gets over 2,000 hours of sunshine annually, more than most of Canada, which changes the entire living experience. You'll spend more time at the lake than you ever thought possible because the water is actually warm enough to enjoy without a wetsuit or mental preparation. Remote location means limited health care. Summers get very hot, reaching 35 degrees Celsius and above regularly. That's the trade-off. Picture living in Canada's desert, swimming in warm lake water surrounded by vineyards, paying less than Kelowna or Okanagan cities. The climate alone makes it unique. The affordability makes it accessible. Could you trade coastal ocean views for warm lake living in a desert climate at lower cost? Number 10. Peggy's Cove area, Nova Scotia. Peggy's Cove itself is a tourist trap, but nearby communities along the South Shore offer ocean access and lower costs than Halifax. Life here is tied to fishing, tourism, and Halifax commuters looking for cheaper housing. The coast is rugged. The culture is maritime. Winters are harsh. The trade-off is ocean proximity without urban pricing. Population in small surrounding communities ranges from 1,000 to 3,000 each. Housing median runs $300K to $450K, with older homes and some renovations often needed. Cost of living falls below Halifax with moderate utilities and property taxes. Work reality includes fishing, tourism, and commuting to Halifax 45 to 60 minutes away. Ocean access, lower overhead, and maritime culture form the incentive. There's a strong craft and artisan community with local markets that thrive year-round, which adds economic diversity. You'll learn to read the ocean, when storms are coming, when fishing is good, when tourists will flood the roads. That knowledge becomes part of daily life. Winter storms are serious. Coastal living means exposure to weather. Infrastructure is older and requires maintenance. That's the practical reality. Imagine living minutes from the Atlantic, where your housing cost is half of Halifax, and the ocean is part of your daily rhythm. The culture is authentic, the costs are manageable, and the landscape is unmatched. Could you handle Atlantic winters in exchange for rugged coastal living at a fraction of urban costs? These 10 communities don't share a climate, a province, or even a type of water, but they share a pattern. None of them urbanized aggressively. None of them became luxury resort destinations. Most experienced population decline or stagnation, which kept housing demand lower than supply. Several rely on seasonal economies that create affordability gaps for year-round residents. What they offer isn't luxury. It's reduced dependency, lower monthly costs, less financial pressure, more access to outdoor space and water without paying premiums that exist in cities where proximity to nature is commodified. The lesson isn't that everyone should move to a beach town. It's that certain places operate outside the economic systems that make urban living increasingly expensive. Understanding why that happens and what trade-offs exist matters more than chasing specific locations. Beach access in Canada isn't rare. Affordable beach access is just structured differently than most people expect. This channel explores communities across Canada where cost of living, lifestyle structure, and economic patterns differ from the mainstream narrative. Not every place is for everyone, but understanding the systems gives you better options than simply accepting wherever you can afford in a major city. This is about observation, long-term thinking, and learning how communities actually work. Loving Canadian towns. Subscribe if you want more of this.